Objection is that the theory of macroevolution is included in with the textbooks for our junior high and high school kids as if it is a fact, and it is a far cry from a fact. It's a religion. You can take, like the branches on a tree. You have the different 250 varieties of dogs probably had a common ancestor, and the ancestor was a dog, right? All the different varieties of cats, you know, Siamese and all those different kinds of cats probably had a common ancestor that was a cat of some kind. From here up, this would be micro changes. This would be observable. Nobody's going to argue with that. From here down, that the dog and the cat had a common ancestor somewhere way back when, that would be macro changes, and that would be part of a faith, a belief, a religion, not observable.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
We don't call macroevolution a religion. It is a scientific theory. So it's not a religion. It's a scientific theory.
Okay. Let me read you a definition of religion. Webster's Second Collegiate Dictionary. Religion, a belief in a divine or superhuman power or powers to be obeyed and worshipped as the creator and ruler of the universe. How did the universe get here? Did this process called evolution bring everything into being that we see today? Is that what created the universe, this process? Well, then that's your God. It is indeed a religion. How did the world get here?
Those are your words. From a scientific standpoint, we would call our interpretation of macroevolution a scientific theory.
Okay.
But not a religion. We keep the two separate.
I think science and religion ought to be separate, but they are certainly not in our textbooks. To teach kids that the Big Bang is a fact, for instance, and it is taught as a fact in the textbooks. I collect the books. It is taught as a fact. That is wrong. The Big Bang is a far cry from a fact.
It's taught as a theory.
Not in the books, it's not. I collect them. It may be in college level, you may be getting it. There's several different options, but you should see what's in the junior high book. Boys and girls, 4.6 billion years ago, Earth cooled down from a hot molten mass. But that's not a fact. I mean, were you there? Do you know anybody who was? But I assure you, it is taught as a fact to our younger kids, and I strongly object to that. Yes, sir?
I'm curious about your geological data.
Okay.
For one thing, you talk about the Grand Canyon having originally been a soft sedimentary mass, well, and then forming into, through, I guess, fluvial processes, forming into the canyon that it is today. Mm-hmm. Well, under those circumstances, of course, all of the sediment around it would also have washed at the same level down to the ocean below. Instead of forming rivulets, it would have all formed at the same time. Also, the ocean going from the middle of the continent down towards the ocean basin would cause shell deposits to be found in the middle of, like, the Great Plains right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
they are.
Well, not really.
I found 500 shark's teeth in South Dakota in 30 minutes.
Well, okay.
I got them at home.
But why don't we have 100 Grand Canyons all around the world, where these soft sedimentary processes were going on?
Sure. As the biblical interpretation would be, during the course of this flood, which lasted just about a year, a little over a year, 12 months, according to the dates given in the Bible, the flood lasted 12 months. The first 4 or 5 months were probably with slowly rising waters from a variety of tectonic things, and then the last few months with it going down. But it wasn't just rain 40 days, everybody drown, get off the boat and go home. It was not that way at all. It was a year-long flood. During that year-long flood, the earth, covered by water, would develop many thousands of layers of sediments. It is a fact. The earth has layers. Okay? No question. Now, how do you interpret that? The evolutionist interpretation is each of these layers came at either a different season or a different year or a different era or epoch. And they have names for all of them. The geologic column, Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, Archaeozoic, and they got the Jurassic and Triassic and Permian, Cambrian. I'm familiar with all of that. You might be interested to know the only place in the world where you can find all 12 layers in order, the only place it occurs is in the textbook. The geologic column doesn't exist any place in the world in its entirety. If it did, it would be many, many miles thick. It simply isn't. It doesn't exist. It has been put together piece by piece and a little bit of imagination thrown in for glue. Charles Lyell is really the fellow who developed the geologic column. Many others got involved in this, Hutton, Cuvier, Steno, I'm familiar with all that. But Lyell would be the primary culprit in this. The geologic column doesn't exist anyplace. The fact is, I would say the creationist interpretation is that the flood caused all these layers, or nearly all of those layers, to be deposited very rapidly. Just the earth turning under the moon, causing the tides, with no continents to stop them, the tides would become harmonic. The tides may be 200 feet in a worldwide flood. The rising and lowering of the tide waters would reshuffle all the sediments. You can get a jar of dirt out of the yard here. Well, Florida doesn't have dirt. You got to go north to get dirt. They got sand here. But get a jar of dirt, put water in it, and shake it up. It'll settle out into layers for you automatically. It's called hydrologic sorting. Denser particles go to the bottom. When Mount St. Helens blew its top in 1980, it blew 150 feet of sediment down into the Toutle River Valley. My sister lived right near there. I flew down inside the volcano a few years after it happened with my brother-in-law. Flew all over the area. Can Andrew get the slide projector on there? You can leave your lights on to videotape, but I want to show them a few things that were formed as a result of Grand Canyon. I mean, as a result of Mount St. Helens when it blew its top.
Wait, before you get to that, I need to know what these sediments arrive. What are they part of? If they were laid down a year and there were no mountains yet, where the sediment itself comes from?
Oh, the grinding up, the reshuffling, that's where sediments come from. I mean, there's no new dirt being added to the earth,
So
to speak of.
the original surface that's just being worn?
Being reshuffled. Yeah, sediments do that. That's where, like the coal deposits, strip mines, we find coal. That to me was because the trees that were destroyed were rolling around and the bark, rolled off, and most coal is made from bark. And the original Earth would have had enormous layers, enormous forests, much bigger than today. Under double atmospheric pressure, plants, trees were huge. Of course, they only lived 1,600 years till the flood took place, so they weren't like the 3,000-year-old sequoias. They didn't have 3,000 years to grow.
Do you have an estimate of the depth of water that was added by the flood?
I wouldn't, but I know if the oceans weren't as deep and the mountains weren't as high, there's plenty of water now to cover it 2 miles deep. The Bible says the tallest mountain was covered by 15 cubits, which is about 25, 30 feet. That's how high the tallest mountain was covered. And then as the ocean sank down and the mountains arose, if the mountains rose up slowly, the water would run off slowly, leaving behind nice smooth mountains and big flat plains like Kansas and Nebraska. If the mountains rose up rapidly, like the Rockies, the water would run off faster, carving out features like canyons in Columbia River Valley, carving them out much faster.
Why would the mountains rise up now?
Well, the Earth is a thin crust. Everybody agrees with that. I mean, why do earthquakes happen now? The plates are moving. The crust is not stable.
Plate tectonics.
Oh, yeah, there's plate tectonics. But it hasn't been...
You incorporate that in scientific conditioning?
Oh, absolutely. I lived right by the San Andreas Fault, California. There is no question. It's moving. All right? Ask the folks that live there. You can... after an earthquake and your house falls down. Let me try focusing this just a little bit here. When Mount St. Helens blew all this mud down into the valley, it made so much sediment, and the sediment automatically stratified. This layer of stratified rock, you can see the layers in that, was formed in one day, 25 feet thick. The next time the volcano blew, a scalding hot mudslide cut across that sediment, wiped it out, cut it off, sheer cliff, standing straight up. 5 days later, it was hard enough to hold a sheer cliff. I mean, this stuff happens, okay? Mount St. Helens did that. All these fine laminations were formed very rapidly. Here the blast was going hurricane velocity winds racing across there from the blast of the volcano, and it formed all these layers rapidly. Snow does the same thing in a snowstorm. As the snow goes moving horizontally in a bad wind, you cut into the snowbank and look at it. It'll be stratified. The heavier flakes at the bottom and the sand, it'll automatically sort the particles for you. So the creationist interpretation is that all of that so-called geologic column took place rapidly. Right now, today, you can go see Mount St. Helens, and there are several canyons that have been formed there by Mount St. Helens. The canyons have sheer cliffs, 150 feet high, standing straight up, and they're all stratified, and they were all formed over the last couple of years. The mudslides went through some of the old lava flows that were solid rock. That scalding hot mud went through there and carved canyons 100 feet deep through solid rock in 10 minutes.